Hi everyone and welcome. Today, instead of our usual channeled messages, I decided to do a very special tarot reading regarding the new era, the new paradigm which is just around the corner. From an astrological perspective, it starts on the 21st of December 2020 when the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn takes place in 0 degrees of Aquarius, which means the birth of something totally new. It's almost like stepping into a new dimension, but of course not literally, but neither just symbolically, because a dimension depends on our perceptions, it depends on our ability to observe reality. So even though not immediately after that date, but over the coming years, things are definitely going to feel totally different, radically different. And to give you an example, you know that karmic themes go in cycles. Well, the last time we, as a collective, went through a great conjunction in the sign of Aquarius, coincided with the Renaissance era, and how radically it changed everything. So we can expect something similar, but to be playing out on a much larger scale. So the future does look very, very bright indeed. So simply said, this tarot reading takes a look at how is the future going to look like, where are we heading towards in the following years, and what is that going to produce in the following decades. So in this reading, each and every card represents a main karmic theme that is going to be playing out in the world of the future, of course, but starting from the Great Conjunction. So maybe some of these themes are going to manifest very, very quickly and in a very short time span, because, Aquarius has so much to do with quantum leap, and we also have a total solar eclipse in Sagittarius on the 14th of December, which also means a quantum leap. And the time in tarot is not always linear, so some of these things can happen very, very quickly, while others will definitely take tens of years to complete themselves. So the first card which opens the reading is the Ten of Cups. And even though this card is really, really positive, we must not forget that this is where we're going. This is the final destination. So the journey, the road there might be full of bumps. And the astrological symbolism is Mars. So it might involve a few conflicts, clashes. And of course, this card is also the symbolism of the 12th astrological house. So it might also involve martyrs and people who suffer because of this. And a part of its symbolism already took place. For example, the Black Lives Matter movement. Now what this means is that all of us alive today possess in our genes, in our bodies, in our genetic configuration, and not to mention our unconscious minds, a lot of ancestral traumas caused by wars, by inequality, by all of the suffering that our ancestors absorbed deep within their souls, and naturally they passed it on. And very, very many of these traumas are just simply invisible energies which make no sense to the individual. They only make sense if we look at these collectively, as if humankind would be a person, one singular entity, and we look at its collective unconscious mind, where these are so very much alive. And right now they're being purged out because we cannot step into the future, a future dominated by the energy of Aquarius, if our collective hearts, so to speak, are still being weighed down by inequality and hurts and pains and injustices that we cannot let go of. But the thing here is that it doesn't depend on the individual. This is a collective unconscious energy. So the healing will only take place, the purge will only complete itself when every individual one by one goes through these purges and reaches their very own state of acceptance and peace, forgiveness, and releasing all the pains and hurts. Of course, this doesn't mean that every single person alive on the planet today, but when the majority of people live in acceptance and peace, well, that already means healing. So as I said earlier, this just depicts the final destination, the final stage of the healing journey, but the road to get there is definitely gonna be bumpy. So we can expect in the coming years and even tens of years, a lot of episodes like the Black Lives Matter movements, where something just triggers something symbolic, someone becomes a victim of these unconscious energies one way or another. Fate is going to play us out in order to reveal the hurts and the wounds that are so very much alive inside of all of us. So of course there are going to be clashes, even physical clashes. There are going to be movements, protests, legal cases. The past is going to be evoked so very, very many times. This will keep on happening and happening every year, every cycle, until, as I said, the percentage of individuals who found forgiveness and acceptance and peace, who released the past, becomes greater than the percentage of those people who still carry this unconscious trauma. And as I said, it has nothing to do with the individual and our individual stories. It is a collective unconscious energy which plays itself out until it is healed. But when we do get there, when these energies are balanced out, and of course not perfectly, not 100%, in an imperfect world, everything has to be imperfect, so no one talks about 100% healing where all of us live in absolute peace. No, when the predominant energy is that of having released all of these, well then is a time truly of peace, of collaboration, and when our individual differences are not going to be an obstacle for us to coexist. If you look at the graphic representation of the Ten of Cups, well, it is a cat and dog sleeping harmoniously, peacefully next to a cozy fire, because these two animals instinctually are not best friends with each other, so their instincts, their primal selves would very much like to attack each other, but because they coexisted in the same household, and they never really had to compete with one another for anything, the primal self in its aggressiveness is not active, it became dormant, so they can not just coexist, but they can find harmony, comfort, and joy together. It depicts a state when our differences won't matter whatsoever. May those differences be ethnical, cultural, spiritual, religious, genetic, or whatever. Because the things we have in common, the things that are going to make each and every individual's lives that much more serene, worth living, full of stimulus. Like, for example, the human collective will have much higher goals and ambitions, where those will require cooperation, those will require genuine harmony. Well, then the differences won't really matter anymore because no one will focus upon them. So when the greatest value in the world of the future is the ability to be a good team player, to cooperate, to support one another, or at least, be at peace, not to bother, and there is no competition for survivability, for survival, well then reaching a state of peace and not really digging up the past is gonna be so very, very easy, and this is where we are heading towards. But until we get there, symbolic events will keep on happening, will keep on triggering to bring the collective trauma to the surface until we find acceptance. Next card is the Two of Wands, and this is a really big card because it means conquering higher ground. It means conquering something which until this moment was absolutely inaccessible for us as a collective. Now this means, on one hand, 100% new groundbreaking scientific discoveries, especially regarding quantum physics, especially how reality and the world beyond that of matter is formed, is constructed, how it is held together, what the patterns are, how it functions. So this can mean, like space travel, but with a great purpose. For example, extracting resources from distant worlds, exploring distant planets. And the Two of Wands is a fiery card, so it also has much to do with energy. So it can also mean that the energy of the future, and now we're talking about physical energy, like electricity, like fuel, like how we, animate our technology, is gonna be fusion. Maybe matter, antimatter fusion, because the Two of Wands is a dual card. So maybe two contradictory opposing elements are gonna join as one and create a burst of energy. But at the same time, it can also mean conquering new grounds which we in the present moment can't even think of or imagine. So, traveling to a distant planet is not that big deal, because there are already ways in which we can think about achieving this. But what if this can mean gazing beyond what lies a black hole, for example, or discovering how to actually enter or perceive or take measurements in new dimensions. So the Two of Wands is a very important card because it represents that technology-wise, science-wise, exploration-wise, we are going to be achieving great, great, great things. Now the downside of it, because there is a downside to everything, with great power and knowledge comes great responsibility, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Now the next card is the Seven of Swords, which is a very Aquarian type of card, which speaks about bureaucracy, social systems, how society functions informationally, communication-wise. And one of the symbolisms of this card is the elimination of bureaucracy, paperwork, but that can also be achieved by digitalization and technology. So, maybe all of us are going to become just numbers for the sake of equality, for the sake of equal opportunities for everyone. And there is a dark side of the Seven of Swords. This isn't an overly positive card. So this actually means a great split, where some people will accept it, others will not accept it. So maybe different kind of societies, political systems are going to be formed, which are going to coexist simultaneously, each respecting the higher philosophies of their members, so to speak. So even though morally and spiritually and in the spirit of human nature, we are definitely gonna be united and be as one, but politically and ideologically speaking, we might be more divided than ever before. but this doesn't necessarily have to be something bad. Like, for example, even though what I'm about to say may sound absolutely ridiculous, maybe there are going to be more than one political systems running a country at the same time, simultaneously, where the lifestyle and everything that they do of their members are going to be radically different to one another. But of course, this won't challenge an obstacle for coexistence and working together as one for the highest goals. It may be just a preference of lifestyle and every other preference that you could think of. And also, Aquarius, material gains and, physical, material, healthcare, all of that kind of security is no longer going to be a problem or an obstacle. But of course, the irony is that regardless of how many divisions there are going to be, how many, let's say, groups there are going to be, there are still going to be codependent. Even if the lifestyle of the members is going to be very different, they will still need to cooperate with one another, and there are going to be very many things which are going to have to be shared. And all of this will have its own set of challenges, obstacles, limitations, conflicts for each community with its own distinctiveness. But things like territory and sharing of resources are not going to be part of that. If there's going to be a conflict, it's more like ideological and not really physical. So this isn't about borders and physical limitations, don't cross my territory, etc. This is more like ideological. And also, this might represent that borders in the classical sense between countries and cultures are no longer gonna be physical, so to speak. So this might mean free travel wherever you would like in the world, but the cultural, ideological and moral borders are gonna be much tighter, stricter than ever before. So the distinctiveness and individuality and the cultural inheritance are gonna be things which are gonna really, really be protected and almost held on a sacred pedestal. So the new challenge is not going to be how to cross the border, but rather what will individuals do who belong to more than one culture? Who do they identify with? So basically, it's not going to be a collective problem, but a strict individual problem where the individual has to, make up their mind. Who they resonate with, what they resonate with, what they want to embody, and not because they're forced, not because it's a must, not because they are going to be excluded from somewhere, but if this is the value of the future, well then the more distinctive you are, the more you know who you are, the more valuable and respected you're gonna be. The next card is the Three of Swords reversed, and this is really, really important because on one hand it does mean some bad news, because new mental, psychological, neurological, psychiatric conditions are gonna appear in the world which will challenge everything that science knew until this present moment, but overcoming them, researching them, trying to find a solution is going to open new doors which were never ever considered or explored before for these branches of science, and also new branches of science are going to be born which have to do with neurology, psychology, the study of the soul, or better said, the study of the consciousness. So what consciousness actually is and what we hold as a conscious being, conscious energy, is gonna change radically. But until we get there, when these new, I'm not even sure how to name these illnesses or disturbances, imbalances, which are going to afflict certain people, both mind, soul, and body, are going to be really, really frightening, and those are going to cause a lot of worry, a lot of insecurity. But after humanity's top scientists and researchers figure out what it is, and of course, what haven't we explored before, this is going to revolutionize absolutely everything. These new discoveries will strike at the core of what humankind actually is. They will profoundly change our religious ideologies, how we relate to the universe, what we consider to be a living being, or better said, a sentient living being. So this is gonna be really, really big. The next card to follow is the Sun reversed, and the symbolism of this card is quite literal, because it does mean maybe changes in the Sun, as in our physical parent star. So this may represent very unusual solar activities which may cause calamities or very unusual, unexplainable, weird weather phenomenon down here on Earth, which will force us to adapt to these, which will force us to abandon certain customs, which might force us to think about new ways of how to grow food, agriculture, maybe housing. It can also mean a cycle of increased magnetic solar activity, maybe never experienced before solar flares, or I'm not really sure, I don't possess the scientific knowledge to foretell this, but either way it has much to do with the sun and how it's gonna affect our planet, maybe cooling and warming at the same time, where one part of the world experiences really, really hot weather and the other really cold weather. Or maybe solar radiation will get quite dangerous. So anyway, it will force us to adapt. So there are gonna be a lot of natural calamities, some of them really, really big. But perhaps, we might be talking about tens of years, so it might not really catch us off guard, because as our technology and ways of understanding the functions of universe and cosmology advances, maybe we can prepare ourselves. The next card is the Chariot, which is a really, really beneficial and beautiful energy, because it means that we are definitely going to reach a spiritual pivotal moment when all of our differences won't really matter. And the Chariot implies that two different forces are pulling the chariot, the battle card, so to speak, and those two forces are in harmony with each other. So that's why the direction is one singular, and naturally it means triumph, it means success, it means evolution, and in our case it means a quantum leap in humanity's spiritual evolution. It is when our beings, our consciousness simply open up, when we see ourselves in a totally different light, when we are able to master our primordial instinct, the inner animal inside of us, our reptilian brain, so to speak. So this can mean a lot of really, really positive things that we can accomplish with this spiritual and of course psychological evolution. Maybe we all of a sudden we become a race of empaths when it is our compassion, our solidarity, our willingness to understand one another becomes the greatest value that governs us as a species, and that means living in a totally new dimension for all of us. And at the same time, the Chariot can also represent the past, but in the most positive sense possible. Maybe we are going to also have groundbreaking archaeological discoveries which will reveal to us certain things about our ancestors, or maybe, if this can be understood in a cosmological sense, maybe for some way, somehow, we can gaze into an era before the Big Bang, in the last cycle of the universe's existence which precedes this one, and that can give us a lot of information that can change us forever. The next card is the Justice. This is self-explanatory because it means a massive upgrade in our justice system, but this is where humanity will attempt to reach a level as close to perfection and absolute as it's possible. So this, without a shadow of a doubt, means that human judges will no longer exist. Maybe human judges are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence judges, or those who basically manage and govern and execute everything that has to do with justice, legal systems, courts of justice, laws, rules and regulations. Because if the very nature of the universe, from every perspective, even a strict physical one, is quantic and multidimensional, then only a mind which possesses these qualities can attune itself onto divine justice, because, human justice and justice in the world of humankind is a mimic, it is a mirror of divine justice. That is where even the notion of justice stems from. So even, atheists and people who don't really believe in anything divine, well, they still have to swear on their own honor. So morality is in the lives and in the minds and the hearts of everyone. And a perfect morality means that a perfect mind has to weigh it, judge it, enable it, so the artificial intelligence will have a main role in all of this. The next card is the Four of Swords reversed. Now this is a really, really good sign, because the Four of Swords in upright position would mean a long period of, rest, recuperation, regeneration, when we have to sort things out the slow way. But in reverse position, it means an instant quantum leap. So certain problems, certain obstacles, limitations, regardless of their nature, which seem very challenging, impossible to overcome in the present moment, are gonna be actually a thing of the past very, very quickly. Something is gonna happen. May that be a scientific discovery, because the swords is the energy of the mind, or may that be some kind of unusual event which will quantum leap us into a state as an evolution, climbing up to the next step of our potential as a collective, as humanity seen as one living organism, where the problems of the present moment are gonna be totally insignificant, because our powers are going to grow, but I repeat, humanity seen as a collective, not individually. That can mean that famine, certain incurable diseases like cancer, dementia, economic problems, housing problems, fuel problems, even political conflicts and problems are gonna be very, very quickly a thing of the past. They will no longer possess any threat or any insecurity for humankind. But when exactly that will happen is somewhat of a mystery, but the number 4 may suggest 2024, that is going to be a very strong year astrologically, because Pluto will move into the sign of Aquarius. So that is the moment when we actually embody the age of Aquarius, a moment when we are already in it and doing stuff in it, symbolically speaking. If the gates open up in this year, 21st December, that is just like the light at the end of the tunnel, having the sense of direction, slowly but surely stepping into the new era. But 2024 is like already being at the other end of the gate and having to, do stuff there. And the final card is the Hangman reversed. And this is also a really positive sign from a spiritual perspective, but also from a material perspective, because spiritually what it means is enlightenment, or at least a greater state of enlightenment. The Hangman in upright position is a moment when, we have to enter into that dark night of the soul and solve all our problems, our obsessive desires, the temptations, when we are isolated, alone, when we cannot communicate. But the Hangman reversed is the moment when we step out of it, when we are basically reborn, when we feel reborn. And since this also involves no longer being alone, maybe this will mean that we can communicate with other beings. Maybe we come to the realization that we are not as alone in the universe as we thought we were. Well, this concludes this reading, or better said, a prophecy. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Until next time, bye for now.